from Kern Government Television. Welcome to this week's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting. Originating from the County Administrative Center, located at 1115 Truxton Avenue in Bakersfield, California. Grounded in ideas, energy, and innovation, Kern County's vision is to be a driving force for the world's fifth largest economy. And our mission is to exceed expectations of the communities we serve, changing the way they feel about government, those who manage it, and the services it provides. Today's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting will convene momentarily.
Okay, great. Board to reconvene. Good afternoon, Kern County. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Supervisor Peters.
Here.
Supervisor Parlier.
Still here.
Supervisor Flores.
Here.
Supervisor Couch.
Here.
Supervisor Perez.
Here. Thank you so much, Kathy. May we please have a report on actions taken in closed session, which is standard for the PM agenda. Agendas are at the back of the room on the table if you'd like to follow along. What we do now is get a quick report from our county council of any reportable actions taken in closed session from our morning session to now. Marga?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, board members. This morning and this afternoon, you met in closed session on items 70 through 73, and there is no reportable action.
Thank you, Ms. Rezon. Appreciate it very much. We're going to move to the consent matters. We have a few that are slightly different, so follow along with me, please. We're going to adjourn as Board of Supervisors, reconvene as the Kern Sanitation Authority, and take up one matter on consent that we have listed as item number 1 with a C above it.
Motion to,
Madam Chair, let's go ahead and approve the Board of Supervisors consent agenda items first.
That just makes way too much sense. Okay. We're going to follow the agenda and approve the consent matters. How does that sound? Okay, on page 2, our regular consent matters begin, actually not on page 2, they begin on page 3, items 5 through 8, all items listed. On page 4, items 9 through 16, all items listed. Page 5, all items listed, 17 to 23. On 6, item number 27 is being withdrawn by the department, will not be heard today, so all other items listed, 24 through 31 minus 27, are proposed for consent. On page 7, items 32 to 38, all items listed. Page 8, 39 to 45, all items listed. Page 9, 47 to 50. And on page 10, the lone item 55. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment on consent? Consent is considered by county family to be routine and non-controversial, part of the regular standard business operating procedures here. But if a member of the public feels otherwise, now would be the time to let the board know. Okay, seeing none, I would ask then a motion on consent and to adjourn as Board of Supervisors, reconvene as Kern Sanitation Authority.
so moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you. Now we're sitting as the Kern Sanitation Authority, and if you're looking at the agenda, we have one matter on consent for that authority. That's item number 1. Do we have any members of the public who would like to comment, provide insight? Okay, colleagues, you know what to do.
Motion on consent.
And to adjourn as Kern Sanitation Authority and reconvene as Ford City Taft Heights Sanitation District.
Excellent. Thank you for the save there, Peters.
Second.
And the second. Excellent. So we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Okay, having just adjourned as the Kern Sanitation Authority and convening as the Ford City Taft Heights Sanitation District, we did a wardrobe change. You just didn't see it. Item number 2 is listed on consent there. Item number 2 is listed on consent, and I would ask the public if you would like input on this obviously invigorating, exciting matter. I don't see any interest, Kathy. Shocking. Okay, gentlemen, I'll take a motion.
Motion to move. Motion to move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on consent 2 as Ford City Taft Heights Sanitation District.
And reconvening as the Board of Supervisors, correct?
You're the boss. Reconvening as Board of Supervisors, thank you.
The motion is approved, all ayes.
Never get that right, my goodness. Okay, moving on. Public presentations. This portion of the agenda is reserved for members of the public who would like to comment on matters that are within the jurisdiction of the Kern County Board of Supervisors but aren't on today's agenda. It may have been on a past agenda or maybe on a future agenda, but it's not on today's specific agenda, but within our power. Please come down. Nice to see you, Janine. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. Janine Adams, Tehachapi. Thank you so much for having me here today. Today I'd like to bring to the board's attention at the state level, of course, we know this board has a legislative platform both for California and for federal level. And at the state level, currently there is an Assembly Joint Resolution number 3 that has been brought forward at the state level by Assemblywoman Pilar Chiavo. And we are currently looking for folks to sign on to this particular joint resolution, which this resolution will go to the federal government. We are asking for the federal government to please not devastate our Medicaid's funds that are Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare because of the local impact to our communities. Here in Kern County, as in counties and communities across the United States, the current proposal put forward by this current administration and the Republican majority-held Congress will cause harm here in our community, particularly to the hospitals that are rural hospitals, such as the one in Ridgecrest, the one in Tehachapi that is in my home area, and particularly to Kern Medical, that is the only trauma center here in Kern County. I would like to thank Chairman Couch for asking staff to do a deep dive into what is going on with Kern Health Systems. And I assume that that will include information on how this will be affected by the federal government potentially making these cuts. And I ask that the Republican members of this body ask their colleagues, both at the state and federal level, not to move forward with this very devastating proposal. And
Janine, can you wrap it up, please?
thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for your time.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate your support.
Thank you for your passion and your insight, everything you do in Kern County, Janine. Thank you. Any other members of the public? Okay, board members, colleagues, gentlemen? Okay. We're going to move then right along to our regular agenda item, of which we have, I believe, only 154. Is that correct, Kathy? 46. One of those days. Okay. Under the County Administrative Office, Human Resources Division, we have a consideration of a protest by Welldine RX LLC for the selection or because of the selection of CVS Health as a successful vendor in response to a request for proposal for the county's pharmacy benefits management services for Kern Legacy Health Plans. Elsa, I understand you will be handling this matter. Thank you for the CAO. I see you're just settling in there at the table. Thank you for your work on this matter. This is a matter involving a protest by, you will hear from the original or the entity or vendor who has provided this service for Kern County for some time. We went out to an RFP, which is a selection, chose somebody else, at least at this stage, and so the person who, or the entity that had that contract is now before us to appeal that decision. So we're going to evaluate the reasons the county made that suggestion and then determine what to do moving forward. But we'll have an opportunity to hear from the applicant, or the county rather, and then of course the appellant. So before I am any more confusing, I'm going to stop talking and turn it to Elsa. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Thank you. Elsa Martinez, I'm a Assistant CAO over Human Resources, which manages our health benefits. So as you indicated, the item is a request for Welldyne RC LLC, our current pharmacy benefit manager, to consider their protest for the selection of CVS Health as the county's future pharmacy benefit manager for our current legacy plans. So the county has about over 50,000 employees, retirees, and their family members covered under our plans. So the annual prescription costs are approximately $30 million annually. So just for reference, I'm going to go over a timeline that I think is important for your board to consider as you hear this protest. So the Human Resources Division issued a request for proposal on August 12, 2024. After months of careful review of 15 proposals received and 7 that met the minimum qualifications, the committee comprised of an employee from the assessor's office, not enrolled in health benefits, a health edge partner, and a health benefit employee recommended the selection of CVS Health. All vendors were notified of the committee's decision on January 23rd, 2025, and were offered an opportunity for a debrief. So Welldyne requested a debrief, and prior to the debrief meeting on January 20th, they submitted 2 letters to the county. The first was a protest regarding the non-award, offering only general assertions that the award process did not fully account for the county's commitment to patient care and the complexity of benefit management. The letter also claimed that the county's actions were inappropriate and contrary to law, but did not specify any legal violations or cited any relevant law or procurement laws. The second letter was a California Public Records Act request for all records related to the RFP, amounting to thousands of documents, many of which contain proprietary information that must be reviewed and redacted. The county has worked diligently and as soon as possible released non-exempt records. So on February 3rd, Welldyne participated in the debrief session where the decision was explained in detail, and Welldyne did not provide any further information regarding their assertions made on their January 30 letter. The county responded on February 10, confirming that Welldyne's protest would not alter the recommendation to proceed with the selection of CVS Health, and made that recommendation to your board, which was approved on February 11. On the 17th of that month, Welldyne filed a formal protest with your board, alleging bias among evaluation committee members, delays in providing requested information, and misrepresentation of the evaluation process during the debrief meeting. I want to assure you, your board, that there is no bias on the committee. We make sure that our committee members are independent, and one of the first things they have to do when they are part of an RFP process is disclose any conflicts. And actually, the makeup of this committee is similar to the makeup of the committee that selected Welldyne in the past. At the time, they have no concerns. And as I previously mentioned, the evaluation committee was independent. Okay, and then we were further assisted by our pharmacy consultant and health benefit consultants from Alliant and Siegel Company to ensure that the 7 proposals that met the minimum qualifications were carefully reviewed. And then furthermore, County Council reviewed the procurement process of the RFP to ensure compliance with our existing policy. We informed Welldyne in our initial response to the public records request that it would take several weeks to review and inspect the records and make the necessary redactions. All responsive records were provided to Welldyne last week, and CVS proposal was provided to them on March 4th. It is important to recognize that Welldyne's status of the incumbent vendor does not automatically entitle them to a contract renewal. A public records request is not an expedition for information to improve your outcome. It's just information. And also, Welldyne scored 5 out of the 7 proposals that met the minimum qualifications. In providing quality health care to our employees and their family, it is a priority for the county. For these reasons, we are recommending that your board deny Welldyne's protest and direct the Chief Human Resources Officer to continue the contract negotiations with CVS Health for pharmacy benefit management services. And at this time, it would be appropriate for your board to hear from Welldyne's representatives.
Thank you very much. This is the time now that we can hear from the appellant to come down and give us their reasoning and put onto the record your thoughts. Welcome and good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Phil Bissessi. I'm the general counsel for Welldyne RX, and I appreciate the opportunity to address the board today on the matter of Welldyne's protest of the RFP for Kern County's PBM services. Our issue with the PBM RFP is not that we feel entitled to the business, although we have been the vendor for 9 years. Rather, our issue is that the county did not properly follow RFP procedures or fairly evaluate the submitted proposals. And we understand that government agencies are typically given a lot of deference in their selection of vendors. However, when an agency does not adhere to the procedures outlined in the RFP solicitation document, or proposals are not consistently evaluated, the decision may be considered arbitrary and capricious. Such decisions can be overturned by the administrative agency, the governing body, such as the Board of Supervisors, or the courts. California Public Contract Code 10344 requires that RFPs must be evaluated in a manner specified in the request for proposal. Section 10345 provides that the filing of a bid protest if these procedures are not met is appropriate. And as I'll explain today, the county did not adhere to the Kern County procurement rules or even its own specifications in reviewing the bids. And its actions in awarding the contract to CVS Health were arbitrary and capricious. So let me explain why this is the case. First, the evaluation committee selected to review the RFP submissions was not independent or impartial, but rather had biases with respect to Welldyne. Now, government procurements typically use evaluation committees with members from various backgrounds and disciplines so that they can ensure that there's a comprehensive and fair process of the review. The process must also be thoroughly documented, contemporaneous with the scoring, so that the public knows that the review process was fair and legal. The county did not meet that standard here. The evaluation committee only contained 3 members. All were hand-selected by the County Human Resources Office and subject to the influences of that office. The evaluation committee included a direct HR employee, an individual from Health Edge, which is a vendor retained by the Human Resources Office, and answerable to that office, and another employee from the assessor's office, who we do not know their familiarity with PBM services. Welldyne was sensitive to the makeup of the evaluation committee, as historical service issues have been raised by the HR staff against Welldyne. We were told by the Human Resources staff, both at the debrief and during a call last Friday, that the evaluators were not briefed on these historical service issues. However, that turned out to not be true. There are multiple references to such issues in the evaluators' notes and in the score sheets. In addition, we still have not received a lot of the documents that we requested regarding the evaluation committee. We've gotten some general information, basically the information that was provided by the Human Resources Office in the letter to the Board of Supervisors, but that is the most information that has been disclosed. And we are still waiting for an identification of the evaluators. What was their selection process? What was their training? What familiarity did they have with PBM services that would allow them to score this? These issues have never been disclosed. The second issue is that this biased evaluation committee did not evaluate each bidder on a level playing field. The scoring of proposals was inconsistent and arbitrary. Allow me to give several examples of this. Example 1, the Teladoc bid, which was not a full PBM proposal, but only a partial proposal, was scored along with the full PBM proposals. And you'll have to know that the RFP kind of asked for 2 different submissions. One was a full RFP proposal, and the second was a partial proposal for chronic care management. Now, most responses did respond to the full PBM proposal, but Teladoc did not. They only responded to the chronic care management. The Teladoc bid should not have been scored alongside the other proposals, since it's not an apples-to-apples comparison. More mind-boggling is that Evaluator 3 actually gave the Teladoc proposal perfect scores, all 10s in every category, even though they don't provide PBM services. So that simply raises significant questions around all of the scoring. Example 2 also involves Evaluator 3. Evaluator 3 actually gave perfect 10s in every category to 3 different bidders. That seems like invalid scoring. Maybe one bidder would have a perfect score in all 8 categories on a lucky day, but 3 bidders getting perfect scores in all categories, including Teladoc, who did not submit a full PBM proposal, does not make sense. We don't know who Evaluator 3 was, but their scoring was very strange and probably should not have been considered. Example 3 is a more serious example of inconsistent scoring, which was applied to the winning bidder, CVS Health. CVS essentially changed the terms of the RFP without penalty. The RFP included as Exhibit B to the RFP the county's standard master terms and conditions, which are, quoting the RFP, in substantially the form the successful proposer will be expected to sign, end quote. The county, and this issue is so important that the county asked for consent on each of these items in the proposal. Each bidder was supposed to go provision by provision and say, yes, we agree to this, or no, we don't agree to it. And the RFP also noted that, quote, the raising of significant exceptions in a proposal may be cause for rejection of the proposal. However, CVS said no to many and numerous instances of this language, saying instead that they had already pre-negotiated the agreement with a third party prior to the issuance of the RFP. No other bidder was given this allowance. No other bidder was even notified that such an option existed. So if this didn't cause the rejection of CVS's proposal, it should have at least impacted the score. But there was no notation in any of the scoring as to this significant deviation. And then finally, example 4 is that the scoring on the feasibility of transition is kind of nonsensical. So Welldyne, as the incumbent, would not have a transition period. We would not have an implementation period. We would simply continue our current services. So no implementation. We received a score of 6 out of 10 points. Other bidders who are forced into a very tight timeline, a 90-day implementation fire drill, were given 9s on their feasibility of transition. And so we think that the board should understand that the benefit plans are complex. There's significant detailed reporting monthly required by the PBM, and to kind of dismiss the real concerns of implementation doesn't strike us as making sense. Third, it wasn't just that some of these examples that I gave where the scoring was flawed. The whole RFP scoring system was flawed. It's not mathematically correct, and it was not applied consistently. So the RFP used standard scores of 10 points in each of 8 categories, outlined on page 6 of the RFP. The total possible points, therefore, was 80. The county then attempted to apply a weighting to these scores, but there was an incorrect assignment of weight-adjusted scores. For example, the category of qualification of proposers' staff, that 10 points was given a weight of 20%. That weight-adjusted score should be 18, not 12, as was outlined in the RFP notes and scoring materials. In addition to this math problem, the scoring criteria outlined in the RFP does not match the bids that were actually submitted. The format of the RFP responses is outlined on page 21 to 26 and is completely different than the 8 categories that the evaluation committee used to score. And so the evaluators were put in a difficult and confusing situation, deciding for themselves where to place the scores for these different components of the RFP, also allowing for scores to be inconsistently applied or applied in multiple places. This obviously increases the subjectivity of the review process and increases the risk of bias in the process. Finally, I just want to note that the county has delayed the provision of public records to support Well9's protest of the RFP. And obviously, it's difficult to lodge a protest and to do so with great explanatory materials if we don't know what actually occurred. Well9 made its public records request on January 30th, and we knew it would take some time to produce the documents, which is why Well9 reserved the right to supplement its protest upon receipt of the information. However, we went essentially 5 weeks with no documents to review. Our original protest was denied by the county before we even had a single document. That prejudiced our ability to make a protest and essentially renders the protest process meaningless. So after 30 days, we finally received 2 documents, 2 2-page scoring sheets. We don't understand why it took a month to produce a 2-page document. And then, as the county attorney noted, most of the documents weren't provided until last week, Wednesday and Thursday. Essentially 5 weeks later, and only a couple of business days before this meeting. So, and that production of documents was heavily redacted. Some of the proposals were illegible. In addition, we have not received many of the internal communications or notes related to the RFP, the evaluation committee, and the scoring. And these are public records, which we should be entitled to as part of the protest. So the whole process of the protest to this point has been rushed and dismissed and pushed to the point of prejudice to Well9. And so for the reasons outlined here, we're asking that the Kern County Board of Supervisors recognize that the Kern County procurement rules were not followed, California law was not followed, and grant our appeal. Serious consideration should be given to reissuing the RFP. The things I've outlined here are fatal flaws that I don't know that can be cured retroactively. But even if the board is reluctant to take that step, at the very least, the board should advise the county human resources offices to provide us the documents that we've requested, allow us ample opportunity to review those documents and supplement our protest, and not continue with the implementation of CVS Health until our protest has been resolved. We think these are just basic requirements of due process. Our agreement with the county is good through April 1st of 2026. We understand the county would like to move on sooner rather than later, but the point is that there's ample time to resolve these serious issues and concerns and to allow Well9 a meaningful protest. So with that, I'll wrap up. We appreciate your time today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Sir, thank you so much. Any questions at this time? I don't see anybody punched in yet. Okay, thank you, sir. We'll be right back with you. Okay, I'd like to ask any member of the CAO's office to respond as appropriately, and then I'm going to open to the public.
So just a few points, Madam Chair. I think we need to clarify, all records that are available, I've been informed by County Council, were provided. We notify them ahead of time that it will take time. As you may be aware, there's proprietary information. As a matter of fact, Well9 provided a proposal that had proprietary information. I believe, if and our staff can correct me if I'm wrong, that they actually redacted their, they gave us 2 copies, one already redacted. So we appreciate that, others did not, so we had to give them the same courtesy to redact their proprietary information. One of the things that came up is the criteria, and I want to read you what it says on our RFP that they responded to. The following is a list of general criteria that may be used by the evaluation committee in determining its recommendations to the Board of Supervisors. And in bolded, it says, Please note that the evaluation committee may consider any information they deem relevant in determining a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, and may give each of the criteria considered as little or as much weight as they consider appropriate. And finally, we understand PBM is complex. Don't get me wrong, it is absolutely complex. And that's why we have consultants that assist the county. They do not participate in the scoring. Our human resources officer did not participate in the scoring. So this statement that she controlled the process is incorrect. This is the same process we use when we selected Welldyne. They didn't have an issue then. Now it's an issue because they're not the selected vendor. We have our representatives here from Alliant, that they're a PBM consultant, and our representative from Siegel that are health benefits consultant. They assisted us in this process. It was a thoughtful process. And I think there was some code that was listed, and I appreciate them calling me attorney. I'm not an attorney. I'm sure county council can give you information regarding the code that was listed as that we didn't follow. We follow our policies, which I believe are within our legal requirements.
Thank you very much. I don't see anyone else punched in just yet, so I'm going to ask if there are members of the public who would like to come forward and provide your input, opinion, or insight. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to return to the board for comments, questions, or action. Gentlemen, it's been a long day.
Did our consultant have anything to say?
Would you like, Supervisor Flores has alluded to our consultant. I think that is an excellent idea to get some input from you.
Definitely.
Thank
Hello.
you so much.
This is Jessica from Alliant. You're a pharmacy benefit consultant.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Jessica Dominguez-Madich from Alliant.
Alliance?
Alliant.
Alliant. Thank you.
Sorry. So based off of what Elsa had stated and what was stated, we have done an RFP for the County of Kern 4 times. And each time, the evaluation process throughout the, 8 years. So, and each time we use the same evaluation, weighting and scoring. So even though we have different evaluators and different inputs, we do go over what we expect from a PBM consultant, what we see in the industry, and what to expect. So initially, a briefing is done with your evaluators to go over, these are the services that we consider standard, and then what we would consider offerings of more, what they currently have today, and any reason that we took it out to bid, whether it be fiduciary responsibility or member concerns. So we have taken this out numerous times. Welldyne has won each time up until this point. So, are there any questions, concerns
Okay,
at that point?
any
Thank you.
gentlemen?
Thank you for the context.
Looks like Supervisor Couch is punching in. What do you got?
I want to ask staff a couple of questions to put some facts on the record. Anything you heard give you pause for us to not move forward today?
Great question.
No.
I heard one thing, but I want you to address it. It was, well, I heard several things, but I heard one thing that resonated a bit, and that was, I'm not sure what you called it, sir, transition plan, or you know the aspect that I'm speaking of, and you know my history with transition plans. So what's going on with that? Do you have any comment about that?
Supervisor Couch, when I reviewed the RFP, the scoring, that was the first thing I looked, because I am familiar with the issue that you brought up at the last protest. And to understand, we have to give that a weight. I think it was phrased a little bit different this time. Do not penalize the incumbent, as you may have indicated in the past, for not having a transition plan because they're the incumbent. So I don't think there was an issue related to that transition plan. We have to prepare one because the current contract requires a 90-day, out. So we need to ensure that this is a little bit different than the last one. We have 15,000 members that rely on this, so we need to put a little more weight on that. But I don't believe the incumbent was penalized in any way for not having to have a transition plan.
Okay. Just for the public to know, the board members do not know who was on that panel, this board up here, Board of Supervisors.
Correct.
I don't even know the process and how they were chosen. We have no input on the questions that are asked or the formation of the RFP. In fact, you don't even bring the RFP to us. You just, your department, CAO's office puts the RFP out, you receive the responses, it goes through the process, and it eventually ends up here if there is an appeal. Correct?
That is correct for the majority of the cases. In very few instances, we might bring the RFP to your board if we're changing the way we do business or if we know it's controversial already. But 99% of the time, you will not see the RFP before it goes out.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Couch. Anyone else? Okay, well, it looks like we need to make a decision about the protest, correct?
Thank you. I want to say, before I make a motion to affirm the staff recommendation, I also share Supervisor Couch's, I was going to bring that up on transition plan, so thank you for that treatment. And, transition plan also goes both ways in terms of assuming for the new vendor or exiting for an old vendor. But thank you for your explanation, and I'd like to make a motion in support of staff's recommendation.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to the end of our afternoon agenda. Not seeing colleagues punched in or anybody from CAO's office piping up, I would like to entertain a motion to our next meeting. We will not meet next Tuesday, which is traditional for us. We'll meet the following Tuesday, March 25th. I understand Supervisor Couch will not be with us on that day. Is that
that's
right?
right. That's
So
correct.
he will be absent that day, but he will be off doing important business, as we know.
Motion to adjourn on March 25th.
Thank you. Adjourned.